Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back to a world you've half glimpsed in oil paintings and cathedral shadows, a world of stone walls, cold hearths, and the haunting hush of candlelit corridors. You find yourself in a time where every day is a test of endurance, and even the gentle touch of dawn feels like it's hiding something sharp. Your feet shuffle along uneven cobblestones, the chill of the air clings to your skin, and you realize the medieval night isn't just cold. It's heavy with the weight of unspoken rules, especially for women. The soft flicker of a lantern might cast a pretty glow, but you can't shake the feeling that beauty here is dangerous, something you're expected to chase, yet never fully hold. You probably won't survive this era's beauty standards. Not many did, not unscathed. So, before we go any further, if this quiet space makes you feel even a little less alone, you can like the video and subscribe, but only if it feels right to your heart. And hey, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Are you lying awake in a quiet room at 2 a.m.? Or maybe starting your day in a rainy city? Eyes still heavy? Drop your time and place in the comments. Let's remind each other we're not alone out here. Now, dim the lights. Let your shoulders relax. And let's begin tonight's slow, strange journey. Together, here on Timeless Sleep. You slip into the hush of a medieval town, the air laced with wood smoke and distant bells. It's easy to picture beauty as a blessing, something delicate, coveted, draped in ribbons and roses, but the truth stares back at you from the blackened windows. Beauty is a battlefield, and every woman you see is fighting for survival in ways you'd never expect. The rules are everywhere, and nowhere, shifting with each season, each whispered rumor. Beauty is more than skin deep here. It's the armor you wear and the target painted on your back. Take a slow walk down a main street, straw-scattered mud, an arch of shops with faded wooden signs. Women huddled around a barrel fire, their cheeks flushed not from rouge, but from biting wind and the worry that comes with knowing their lives can turn on a single glance. Your clothes itch, they're coarser than you'd hoped. Every piece from shift to cloak is calculated. Are you plain enough to avoid suspicion? Pretty enough to catch a good match? Not so pretty you risk trouble. It's a fine line, razor thin. Tonight, you watch as a young woman, perhaps no more than 16, pulls her hood lower over her brow. She's careful not to let her fair hair show. That's a dangerous luxury in a town where the wrong man's attention can be a curse. But if she's too modest, too invisible, she's dismissed as plain and unworthy, a burden to her family, a lost investment in a society obsessed with alliances. There's something quietly terrifying about the way beauty is measured. It's not just about a face, it's about posture, voice, movement, even silence. If you laugh too loud, you're frivolous. Too soft, you're hiding something. Your hands must be pale. Calloused hands betray a lack of privilege, a life too close to labor. The irony isn't lost on you. Those same hands are expected to bake bread, weave cloth, swaddle babies, delicate, but not useless. Lovely, but never idle. You brush your fingertips across the rough fabric at your waist and think about the strange, exhausting rituals women must endure. Some girls are sent to bed early, with slices of cucumber pressed against their cheeks to draw out the heat, a tradition passed down by grandmothers who swear by old remedies. Others are woken at dawn to kneel by the icy river, splashing their faces in the name of purity and resilience. You hear the tale of a merchant's daughter forced to sleep sitting upright, lest a pillow crease ruin her morning complexion. Here's a lighter tidbit you overhear in a tavern. Apparently, chewing parsley keeps your eyes bright and your breath sweet enough to charm an angel. Whether it works or not, you can't say, but the parsley seller at the market always seems to have plenty of regulars. As you pass the baker's window, the glow from the fire highlights a trio of women. Each is different, one tall and angular, another with a freckled nose, the third short and sturdy, yet each is marked by the same weariness in her eyes. They are daughters, wives, and widows, all defined by the tight boundaries of what's considered beautiful. You can't help but notice how often a woman's life is rewritten by a single feature, a sloping brow, a dimple, hair a few shades lighter than most. What's praised today might be mocked tomorrow. The church looms large over every beauty ritual. Sunday sermons warn of the sin of vanity, yet somehow the stained glass Madonna is always depicted as impossibly lovely. You see a contradiction there. Women are told to be humble, but if they let themselves go, they risk being called slovenly, or worse, unholy. Even as you pray, kneeling on cold stone, you're aware of how you're. The nuns glance up, measuring every unruly strand of hair, every flushed cheek, as though each imperfection is a step away from grace. You catch wind of a rumor that's wound its way through the market stalls. A peasant girl, strikingly pretty, has caught the eye of a visiting knight. By dusk, her mother is in tears. Her father is muttering about locking the doors, and the girl herself is nowhere to be found. Maybe she ran, maybe she was sent away. Maybe she's simply hiding, understanding too well that attention isn't always a prize. There's no sanctuary in marriage either. Dowries are negotiated with the same cold logic as livestock trades, and beauty is weighed like a bushel of wheat. You hear the phrase fair enough to bring a good match, and you realize how literal it is. Fair, meaning pale, untanned, untouched by work. Match meaning alliance, property, future sons. No wonder some women risk their health for beauty's fleeting protection. In a stone cottage at the edge of town, you're invited inside by an old woman known for her herbal cures. She tells you that for every beauty she helps, there's another who's come to her in despair. The prettiest girls are often the most desperate, terrified of losing what little leverage they have. Some come seeking tonics to keep their skin smooth or to draw out a man's affection, while others want something to dull their own. She presses a sachet of lavender into your palm. For rest, she says, for forgetting the world a while. Sometimes beauty is protection. Other times it's a trap. The contradictions never end. You watch as a young woman, recently widowed, is forced to cover her hair and face in black. Her beauty now a threat to her own family's standing. Even in mourning, her features are commented on. Her grace both a liability and a weapon. Another widow, plain and aging, is left to her own devices, ignored, invisible, neither coveted nor protected. Is it a blessing or a curse to fade from notice? Historians still debate how much agency medieval women truly had. In your bones you feel the answer is not enough. You walk into a dim room, the air sharp with the smell of vinegar and rosewater. Bottles and jars line the shelves, some filled with chalky powders, others with murky oils. These are the tools of daily battle, gathered at great expense or risk. You watch as a girl dips her fingertips into a jar of lead paste, her mother's instructions echoing, "Only a little too much will make you ill." Already you see faint blue veins snaking across her wrists. She's chasing a ghostly ideal that might kill her. In the corner, a sister scrapes her hairline back with a blunt knife, pulling her hair high to achieve the popular noble forehead. She flinches, but keeps going. It's worth it, she thinks, if it means a better match or even just a softer glance from her father. The pain is private, the results public. You pass a doorway where two women are arguing in hushed tones. One is accused of spending too much time at her mirror, a rare and precious item. The other is accused of neglecting her appearance, letting herself slip. You catch a story, a real one if you believe the old women at the well, about a noblewoman who sent a servant to secretly copy the facial routines of a rival. When caught, the servant claimed she was just fetching water. Whether she was telling the truth or not is still argued by those who care to remember. In this world, even a splash of water can be a weapon. All around you, young girls are taught that beauty is as fragile as a spring blossom and just as easily destroyed. A single scar from a winter fever, a broken nose from a childhood fall, and suddenly your value drops. Some girls are kept inside for weeks before an important visit, hidden from sun, wind, or gossip, emerging only when their mothers are sure they look their best. You wonder if anyone ever feels truly safe in their own skin. The answer, whispered in the dark, confessed between friends, or scrawled in the margin of a diary, is almost always no. Here's a final story for tonight. An old legend about a woman so beautiful she was said to bring blessings to her village. But the year a drought hit, the villagers blamed her, convinced her beauty had angered the spirits. She was driven out, her gift turned curse, her name is lost. But her story lingers, a warning to all who would dare stand out. As you tuck yourself deeper beneath the imagined furs and scratchy blankets of this medieval night, you understand to be a woman here is to be both shield and sacrifice, prize and scapegoat. Beauty is the battlefield, and everyone is forced to fight. The night lingers, thick with a fog that clings to the beams above your head and curls along the rough stone floors. You sense, even in the safety of your little corner, that the battle rages on, sometimes quietly, sometimes with a desperate, feverish edge. You watch as another day breaks over the town, sunlight creeping past tattered curtains. This light is unforgiving. It doesn't hide the bruises and stains, or the fine powder dusted across a young woman's cheek, paler than the snow outside. Everywhere you look, women are locked in a silent arms race. The weapons are small, pots, pins, brushes, bits of bone and shell. In secret, they mix the ingredients that promise transformation. Each a calculated risk, each a potential disaster. There is no potion more coveted or more dangerous than the ones that promise porcelain skin. You hear it whispered in the market. Milk of lead, Venetian cerise, the French secret. These names slip off tongues like prayers. The women who can afford it send for powders from distant cities, wrapped in cloth, marked with wax seals. Smuggled in with spices and silk, they dab the pale mixture on their faces at dawn, hoping to erase freckles, scars, and the deep shadow of fatigue. It's supposed to make them look like the saints in the stained glass, but what it really does is seep into the blood, poisoning slowly, quietly, with every touch. You reach for a rough wooden comb. Across the room, a girl with pale lashes is grinding pearls into powder, mixing them with egg whites and rose water. The recipe is ancient, handed down from a time when beauty was said to ward off illness, attract good fortune, or draw a nobleman's gaze. She smears the mixture across her face, wincing as it dries into a mask that cracks if she smiles too wide. The ritual is performed in secret, away from brothers and fathers, behind locked doors and thick curtains. When she emerges, she is pale as the moon, a living painting, her skin almost translucent. There's a joke among the washerwomen: if your skin is too clean, you must be hiding something. A little dirt keeps the demons away, they say, scrubbing at elbows and knees. Yet, when festival season arrives, these same women sneak away to dab chalk on their cheeks, hoping to catch the eye of a passing squire. You hear tales of exotic cosmetics brought by traders from Byzantium and the East, ground lapis for eyeshadow, antimony for lining the lashes. There's a bottle of orris root water, prized for its scent, and a tiny jar of crushed beetles, carmine, used to tint the lips a ghostly red. Not everyone can afford such luxuries, but the recipes trickle down. The baker's daughter tries to make her own, boiling wildflowers and mixing the thick purple paste with tallow. She doesn't notice when her lips swell and crack. The pain is just another tax, another tithe to the gods of beauty. In the shadows, a woman named Agnes, older, shrewd, with the slow smile of someone who's survived many winters, sits by a smoky fire. She has a bottle of something she calls moon milk. She tells you in a low voice that it's made from crushed oyster shells, vinegar and a little honey for sweetness, so the bitterness won't cling. She paints it over the backs of her hairs, hoping to erase the marks left by decades of labor. It'll turn you into a ghost if you're not careful. She laughs, and you believe her. A fringe tale floats from the city, a noblewoman who used belladonna drops in her eyes to make them look larger, darker, more innocent. Her vision blurred, the world spun, and she began to see shapes at the edges of candlelight, faces that weren't there. Some say she fell from a tower, others that she wandered into the woods, never to return. The story shifts with every telling, but the warning lingers. In this world, Beauty is never free. It's not just the rich who risk everything. The poorest scrape together coins for scraps of tallow and chalk, anything to stand out for a moment. In the flickering light of a feast, all faces blend together, and it is the ones who glow palest, like will-o'-the-wisps, who draw the eyes of the powerful. There is one ritual that makes you shudder. It's called bleeding, and it's said to flush the skin, make the cheeks glow. Some women prick their fingers with pins, dabbing the blood onto their faces before a celebration. Others go to the barber surgeon for leeches, hoping the loss of blood will give them the wan, ethereal look that's suddenly in fashion. Just enough to make you look like you've never worked a day, someone says. The humor is dry, but the practice is real. Sometimes these rituals cross the line between hope and desperation. A mother forces her daughter to drink vinegar every morning, convinced it will keep her complexion clear and her waist small. Another girl is fed a diet of boiled fennel and parsley, the local midwife swearing it will draw out the beauty from within. You see the strain in their eyes, the hollowness in their cheeks, yet even the harmless can become deadly. Some women turn to mercury, believing it will cleanse the skin. The poison seeps in through pores, burning away freckles, but also shortening lifespans. You recall the legend of a queen who could no longer speak by her 30th birthday, her tongue swollen and her lips tinged blue. Some say it was punishment for her pride. Others whisper that she simply believed too hard in the promises written on the side of a dusty jar. The church, ever watchful, walks a fine line. Monks copy recipes for healing ointments and beauty balms in their illuminated manuscripts, but they also thunder from the pulpit against female vanity. In confession, women are asked to account for every drop of powder, every glance in the mirror. Yet the highest abbesses, those who advise queens, are said to keep little pots of honey and lavender oil in their private chambers. For health, of course. The contradictions run deep. A peasant girl is scolded for using flower water to scent her hair, while a duchess can bathe in milk and rose petals without rebuke. The rules change with rank, but the risks remain the same. Historians still argue whether the obsession with pale skin came from fears of disease, paleness as a sign of purity, of freedom from the labor that brings plague and dirt, or whether it was simply a mark of status, a way to separate the worthy from the rest. Either way, the result is clear. Women are trapped in a system that asks them to be flawless, to take poison willingly, to play a game where the only prize is being chosen, even for a moment. As dusk settles, you walk through the alleys behind the town square, listening to the hush of conversation. Two girls compare the blisters on their arms, earned from scrubbing with lye. Another tells of a cousin who boiled herbs in goat's milk to treat a stubborn rash, only to end up with angry welts that never faded. Better a few scars, she shrugs, than looking like I don't care. Somewhere, a bell tolls the hour, and you realize the true poison isn't always in the jars and bottles. Sometimes it's in the words, mother to daughter, friend to friend, lover to beloved. The message is always the same. You must be beautiful, no matter the cost. You curl deeper into the warmth of your imagined bed, the scents of rosewater and vinegar swirling together in the air. Through your half-closed eyes, you see the ghostly faces of women, noble and poor, young and old, each marked by the same desperate hope. The world they live in is harsh, and beauty is both shield and shackle. Somewhere in this town, a new potion is being mixed, a new rumor spreading, another woman dreaming of a face smooth as marble. In the flicker of firelight, you wonder what she's willing to risk for one more fleeting moment of safety, of power, of being seen. In the hush before the town stirs, you glimpse a young woman by her window, unraveling the thick plait she's kept hidden all night. Her mother hovers nearby, examining the strands for split ends, for signs of lice, for the first glint of grey. It's not just vanity, it's survival. Loose gleaming hair is prized, a sign of youth, health, and at least in rumour, virtue. Yet if that hair is too beautiful, too noticeable, it brings the wrong kind of attention. And if it's dull, tangled, cropped, or thin, well, that can be social death. You might laugh, but there's a serious edge. A woman's worth can quite literally dangle by a hair. You hear it in the way matchmakers gossip about golden tresses and raven locks, always in the same breath as dowry sums and family names. And so the rituals begin. You watch as the young woman's sister heats a tiny iron rod over the fire, ready to singe split ends. She combs rosemary oil through the lengths, whispering prayers that it will keep the strands strong and banish vermin. The sharp scent lingers, cleaner than most homes, and according to the old women, able to keep evil spirits away. You listen to the complaints and laughter as girls try to untwist knots with blunt combs carved from bone, teeth snapping in protest. "If you love me, you'll help me," they tease each other. But underneath, you sense a deeper desperation. They can't afford to let their hair go. A woman with a cropped head, unless she's a nun or in mourning, becomes a subject of whispers, even suspicion. Every morning there's the hunt for lice, a never-ending struggle shared by all classes. A noble woman might have silver combs and scented waters, but she's just as likely to be scratching at her scalp behind a fan as the peasant girl at the riverbank. Sometimes entire families are shorn during an outbreak, the shame hidden under hoods and hats until the hair grows back. In the marketplace, you hear an old man joke. A louse has no respect for blue blood. He's right. The battle is democratic, if nothing else. And there's power in hair too. Stories swirl around the market of women who weave tiny charms into their braids. Bits of ribbon, a sliver of bone, a drop of their own blood, hoping to draw luck or keep away curses. The superstitions run deep. Never brush your hair after dark, or you'll invite ghosts. Never let a stranger braid your hair, or they'll steal your spirit. You watch a mother carefully brush her daughter's hair at sunrise, murmuring blessings as she works out the tangles. It's love and magic, protection and preparation, all in one. There's danger here too. You overhear the village priest warning mothers to keep their daughter's hair covered in public. Temptation lies in loose locks, he intones from the pulpit, voice echoing against the cold stone. Some say it's about modesty, others whisper it's about control. A woman who lets her hair down in public, intentionally or not, can be accused of everything from vanity to witchcraft. In some regions, the punishment for a married woman showing her uncovered hair is a hefty fine, public shaming, or worse. You begin to understand why so many women braid and wrap, tuck and pin. Historians still debate whether hair was more about a law or obedience. Was it protection from wandering eyes, or proof of subservience to a husband or father? Maybe both. In private, a woman might let her hair flow free, her only audience the dark, silent walls. In public, her hair is wound tight, hidden beneath a kerchief or wimple, the message clear: I belong to someone. Don't look too long. In noble houses, hair takes on even greater meaning. Long, well-kept hair becomes a symbol of untouched virtue, a selling point in marriage negotiations. There are records of entire rooms filled with tapestries and paintings depicting women with impossibly long, shining hair. In contrast, widows and penitents cover their heads with black cloth, signaling both grief and withdrawal from the world's gaze. Sometimes the rituals around hair are used to control and punish. A noblewoman disgraced at court might have her hair shorn as a public humiliation, a living reminder that beauty can be revoked at any moment. Yet even in hardship, you see flashes of rebellion. Young women sneak out with hairpins fashioned from wire, curling their hair in secret, weaving in wild flowers or bits of coloured thread. At festivals, a few dare to show a little too much forehead, a little too much curl. The bolder ones meet each other's eyes across the dance floor, sharing a flicker of solidarity. Let them gossip, their smiles say. Tonight, I'll be seen. And it's not only the women who notice. Men, too, are judged by the hair of the women in their lives. A wife with thick, shining hair is considered a sign of prosperity, a living advancement for a husband's ability to provide. Mothers are judged by the hair of their daughters. Well-kept locks mean careful upbringing. Neglect, on the other hand, brings shame, not just to the girl but to her whole family. There's one particularly strange tale that makes the rounds every spring. A woman who braided her hair so tight each night that when she was finally married, the braids left permanent ridges in her scalp. Some claim she did it for beauty, others for luck. A few say it was simply her way of controlling the world, one plait at a time. You wonder what it would feel like to step outside without worrying about how every curl falls, how every stray hair might change your fate. But for now, that freedom feels distant. In the dim morning light you see women brushing, braiding, pinning and covering, each action part of a choreography as old as memory. There's a quiet moment as you watch a mother tenderly comb her daughter's hair before bed that softens the edges of all these struggles. It's not always war, sometimes it's comfort, fingers moving through tangles, stories shared over the rhythm of the comb. A grandmother hums an old song, her voice rising above the clatter and noise of the day. For a moment, hair is just hair, a gentle inheritance passed down, a touch that says, "You belong, you're safe, you're loved." But as the evening draws in, the battle resumes. You catch a glimpse of a girl nervously tucking a loose strand under her veil as she walks past a group of young men. Their eyes follow her, noticing, calculating. She keeps her gaze low, footsteps quick. In this world, to be beautiful is to walk a narrow line between pride and peril, to carry the weight of centuries in every braid. As you settle into your blankets, the shadows flickering on the wall, you realize the struggle over hair in medieval times is more than just a daily annoyance or a fashion trend. It's a battleground where love and fear, power and pain, all twist together, never quite untangling. And every woman, rich or poor, young or old, wakes each day to fight it all over again. Your mind drifts forward into the restless day, where beauty demands not just soft skin or shining hair, but the very shape of your body itself. You can almost feel the rough linen shift pinching beneath your arms, the unfamiliar weight of laces drawn too tight, the pressure of fabric pressed into your ribs and belly. Welcome to the age of constriction, where what's worn beneath the surface can matter as much as the face you present to the world, and fashion itself becomes an unrelenting struggle. If you listen closely, you'll hear the rustle and sigh of women dressing for the day, mothers yanking cords, daughters sucking in shallow breaths, little sisters clutching at hems and sleeves. In some towns, especially near the great courts, the trend for tightly bound waists and flattened chests sweeps through the noble class like a fever. The well-born crave the straight look, slim, delicate, as if the body itself is apologizing for taking up space. You watch as a noblewoman's maid loops cords through the eyelets of a stiffened underdress. "Hold still," she mutters, bracing a knee against her mistress's back and tugging hard. The woman gasps, then adjusts her shoulders to endure it. The lacing bites into skin, compresses ribs, molds the torso into an idealized shape. You can see her knuckles whitening as she grips the edge of a heavy wooden chest for balance. Later, when she sits at the high table, she'll eat little and drink less, not just from decorum, but because there's hardly room for her stomach to expand. Beauty, tonight, will mean hunger and aching muscles and a soft, elegant curve beneath her gown. Historians still debate whether the medieval corset as we know it even existed. Some say the word is an anachronism, that laced bodices and kirtles didn't fully harden into torture devices until the Renaissance. But whatever the technical truth, there's no doubt that constricting garments, tight lacing, bandages, stiffened stays were part of a noblewoman's arsenal by the late Middle Ages. And even among the poor, a belt cinched tightly around the waist could mean the difference between being considered trim or slovenly. One mainstream fact: the nobility's obsession with thinness wasn't simply aesthetic. In times of plague or famine, a slim figure signaled not just good breeding, but, ironically, access to enough food to be choosy, to reject peasant gluttony. An over-plump woman could be mocked, her appetite linked with all sorts of unsavory vices. In some circles, a visible ribcage became a fashion statement, a sign of self-control and divine favor. For the average woman, though, The line between healthy and desirable is perilously thin. Too much flesh and you're scolded for greed. Too little and you risk suspicion of illness. Or worse, accusations of witchcraft or withering. There are stories, some tragic, some darkly comic, of girls binding their waists with strips of cloth or even braided horsehair, desperate to whittle themselves down to courtly standards. The tighter, the better, even if it leaves angry red marks or makes breathing a struggle. In the small hours, you hear whispered advice passed between women in kitchens and stables: how to hide a rounded stomach, how to compress the bust so it won't draw unwanted stares. There are herbs to chew, teas to drink, and the ever-present promise that with enough discipline, the body can be forced to obey. A merchant's wife tells her daughter, "Suffer a little now, and you'll marry well." The daughter grits her teeth and holds her breath, wondering when, if ever, the pain will mean something more than just being seen. One fringe tidbit. Somewhere in the tangled annals of European fashion, a trend emerges for padded hips and false bellies, especially during pregnancies at court. Pregnant, a woman might be praised for her fruitful figure, but not too much. There's always a fine line between fecundity and impropriety. Women stuff linen or wool into secret pockets to mimic the right look, knowing their bodies will be judged, praised, or gossiped about with every public appearance. Outside the courts, among the working poor, clothing has its own rules. A belt worn high can create the illusion of a longer, leaner frame, while an apron tied tightly at the waist holds everything in place through a long day's work. But even here, the ideal of a neat figure remains. Mothers scold daughters for letting their tunics gape open or slip from the shoulder. Don't let anyone think we're lazy or wanton. The message is clear. If you care for your body, you'll restrain it. If you let it out of line, people will talk. Not all constriction is physical. You begin to see the invisible rules, how women are expected to shrink their personalities along with their waists. Speak softly, don't laugh too loudly, don't complain about the fit, don't ask for help. If you faint from the heat or the pressure, smile and blame the weather. If you stagger after a long mass, insist you've simply skipped breakfast. Suffering is supposed to be silent and visible, part of the uniform. At every feast or market, you observe the practiced grace with which women hold themselves, straight-backed, poised, breathing shallow to keep the lacing from digging too deeply. They walk with tiny, careful steps, trained by years of moving with restraint. A young noblewoman balances a jug of wine on her hip, not daring to let her posture slip. Her mother nods approval. "Beauty is discipline," she says, and you realize the words are meant for you too. A strange, almost humorous local tradition. On May Day, girls in one village compete to see who can tie the tightest sash around her waist. The winner is crowned May Queen, her victory a badge of self-mastery. But by dusk, she's pale and dizzy, forced to sit down while the older women whisper about the foolishness of youth. Still, every year the contest continues. There's a secret undercurrent of rebellion. Some women, especially those who work in the fields or kitchens, untie their belts and let their bodies relax the moment they're out of sight. A quick sigh, a rub better sore ribs, a stolen mouthful of bread, the relief is fleeting. Soon enough someone calls, and the belts are tightened once more. Not all bodies can be disciplined into submission. You meet a woman with broad shoulders and strong arms, her chest bound tightly beneath layers of wool. She works the plough as well as any man, but in church she kneels low and keeps her eyes down. "It's better not to stand out," she confides. "People are kinder when you fit the picture they expect." Her words stick with you, the way bodies are forced into shape, not just for beauty but for safety. Historians still argue about the medical impact of all this squeezing and binding. Some say it caused permanent damage, bruised ribs, weakened lungs, misshapen bones. Others believe the physical toll is exaggerated, that most women loosened their laces the moment they got home. The truth, as always, is probably somewhere in between. For every woman who relished the ritual, there was another who dreaded it, who carried the marks on her skin for years. At night you listen to the stories told in low voices around the hearth. A girl who fainted in church and was carried out by the choir boys, her mother mortified, her cheeks burning with shame. Another who hid her growing belly for months, with clever layers and stiff belts, terrified of what her neighbors would say. A third who simply gave up, let her clothes hang loose, let her body breathe, and found herself shunned at the next festival, invisible in plain sight. There are always exceptions. Some women refuse to participate, shrugging off fashion's demands in favor of comfort or necessity. A healer in the woods wears nothing but loose tunics and heavy cloaks, her arms bare, her movements free. The villagers call her odd, but they come to her when the tight-laced girls faint or struggle to breathe. She applies salves to bruised ribs and tells them stories of ancient times, when women's bodies were strong and wild and untamed. But such women are rare, and often lonely. The world is quick to punish those who don't conform, to mock or fear the bodies that don't fit the mold. You realize, with a small ache, that every act of rebellion is also a risk, a wager that comfort or health is worth more than acceptance. There's a thread of dark humor in the way women talk about their suffering. If only men had to wear these, one jokes, loosening her belt under the table. The laughter is tired but genuine. For a moment they imagine a world where beauty means freedom, not confinement, a world where a deep breath is never cause for alarm. As you drift deeper into the medieval night, your ribs ache in sympathy, your breath comes a little shorter. The sense of constriction lingers, not just in the body but in the mind. You understand now why so many medieval women dreamed of saints and angels, of bodies transformed and transcendent, unbound by flesh or fabric. For tonight you're still here, still laced tight, learning to survive on a battlefield where every inch of you is measured, judged and shaped. For the average woman, though, the line between healthy and desirable is perilously thin. Too much flesh and you're scolded for greed, too little and you risk suspicion of illness, or worse, accusations of witchcraft or withering. There are stories, some tragic, some darkly comic, of girls binding their waists with strips of cloth or even braided horsehair, desperate to whittle themselves down to courtly standards. The tighter, the better, even if it leaves angry red marks or makes breathing a struggle. In the small hours you hear whispered advice passed between women in kitchens and stables, how to hide a rounded stomach, how to compress the bust so it won't draw unwanted stares. There are herbs to chew, teas to drink, and the ever-present promise that with enough discipline, the body can be forced to obey. A merchant's wife tells her daughter, "Suffer a little now, and you'll marry well." The daughter grits her teeth and holds her breath, wondering when, if ever, the pain will mean something more than just being seen. Outside the courts among the working poor, clothing has its own rules. A belt worn high can create the illusion of a longer, leaner frame, while an apron tied tightly at the waist holds everything in place through a long day's work. But even here, the ideal of a neat figure remains. Mothers scold daughters for letting their tunics gape open or slip from the shoulder. Don't let anyone think we're lazy or wanton. The message is clear. If you care for your body, you'll restrain it. If you let it out of line, people will talk. Not all constriction is physical. You begin to see the invisible rules, how women are expected to shrink their personalities along with their waists. Speak softly. Don't laugh too loudly. Don't complain about the fit. Don't ask for help. If you faint from the heat or the pressure, smile and blame the weather. If you stagger after a long mass, insist you simply skipped breakfast. Suffering is supposed to be silent and visible, part of the uniform. At every feast or market you observe the practiced grace with which women hold themselves straight-backed, poised, breathing shallow to keep the lacing from digging too deeply. They walk with tiny, careful steps trained by years of moving with restraint. A young noblewoman balances a jug of wine on her hip, not daring to let her posture slip. Her mother nods approval. "Beauty is discipline," she says, and you realize the words are meant for you too. A strange, almost humorous local tradition. On May Day, Girls in one village compete to see who can tie the tightest sash around her waist. The winner is crowned May Queen, her victory a badge of self-mastery. But by dusk she's pale and dizzy, forced to sit down while the older women whisper about the foolishness of youth. Still, every year the contest continues. There's a secret undercurrent of rebellion. Some women, especially those who work in the fields or kitchens, untie their belts and let their bodies relax the moment they're out of sight. A quick sigh, a rub at sore ribs, a stolen mouthful of bread, the relief is fleeting. Soon enough someone calls and the belts are tightened once more. Not all bodies can be disciplined into submission. You meet a woman with broad shoulders and strong arms, her chest bound tightly beneath layers of wool. She works the plough as well as any man, but in church she kneels low and keeps her eyes down. It's better not to stand out, she confides. People are kinder when you fit the picture they expect. Her words stick with you, the way bodies are forced into shape, not just for beauty, but for safety. At night, you listen to the stories told in low voices around the hearth. A girl who fainted in church and was carried out by the choir boys, her mother mortified, her cheeks burning with shame. Another who hid her growing belly for months with clever layers and stiff belts, terrified of what her neighbors would say. A third, who simply gave up, let her clothes hang loose, let her body breathe, and found herself shunned at the next festival, invisible in plain sight. There are always exceptions. Some women refuse to participate, shrugging off fashion's demands in favor of comfort or necessity. A healer in the woods wears nothing but loose tunics and heavy cloaks, her arms bare, her movements free. The villagers call her odd, but they come to her when the tight-laced girls faint or struggle to breathe. She applies salves to bruised ribs and tells them stories of ancient times when women's bodies were strong and wild and untamed. But such women are rare, and often lonely. The world is quick to punish those who don't conform, to mock or fear the bodies that don't fit the mold. You realize with a small ache that every act of rebellion is also a risk, a wager that comfort or health is worth more than acceptance. There's a thread of dark humor in the way women talk about their suffering. If only men had to wear these, one jokes, loosening her belt under the table. The laughter is tired but genuine. For a moment, they imagine a world where beauty means freedom, not confinement. A world where a deep breath is never cause for alarm. As you drift deeper into the medieval night, your ribs ache in sympathy, your breath comes a little shorter. The sense of constriction lingers, not just in the body, but in the mind. You understand now why so many medieval women dreamed of saints and angels, of bodies transformed and transcendent, unbound by flesh or fabric. For tonight you're still here, still laced tight, learning to survive on a battlefield where every inch of you is measured, judged and shaped. Tonight, as you settle into your imagined bed, you feel the ache of raw gums, the relief of laughter shared in secret. You understand that, in this world, a smile is never just a smile. It's a victory, a shield, a hope that for one more day, you might just get by. Night deepens, carrying with it a hush broken only by the occasional clink of glass, the muffled thud of wooden stoppers lifted from bottles, and the faintest traces of exotic scents drifting on the draught. It's time to follow your senses, for in medieval times, the pursuit of beauty often meant chasing not just the perfect complexion or a winning smile, but the subtle art of fragrance, a mask for hardship, an armor of allure, and sometimes a shroud of hidden danger. You imagine yourself in the dim corner of a chamber, where a noblewoman sits surrounded by a collection of precious vials and pots, each a treasure gathered over years, each drop more valuable than gold. Perfume in this era is no idle luxury. It's both shield and statement, the only line of defense against a world thick with the odors of sweat animals' sickness and the slow rot of damp stone. The market outside reeks of humanity, tanners, cooks, fires, latrines, but inside a woman can claim a space of her own, set apart by the scent that lingers as she passes. The process of crafting these perfumes is as delicate and dangerous as any alchemy. Rosewater distilled from fresh petals, lavender boiled and strained, oils pressed from herbs and flowers, but beneath the gentle aromas lie substances far more potent and sometimes deadly. Musk, imported at great cost from far lands, is mixed with ambergris or civet, animal secretions, whose true sources are whispered only in private. The sharp tang of spirits, the bitter bite of alcohol or camphor, cut through the sweetness, leaving something bold and nearly intoxicating. Historians still argue whether these strong fragrances were truly favored or simply tolerated as a necessity in such a pungent world. There are records of feasts where the air was so thick with competing scents, garlic, sweat, spices, wine, burning resin, that the only way to endure was to anoint one's handkerchief with rose oil and breathe through the cloth. The mainstream fact is this: by the late Middle Ages, the art of perfume making had developed into a sophisticated craft. Guilds of apothecaries guarded their recipes, and the best formulas were closely held secrets, passed down from master to apprentice. In cities like Venice and Paris, entire markets sprang up for the trade of rare ingredients: frankincense, myrrh, and even imported sandalwood from as far away as India. Yet the line between perfume and poison was thin, and often crossed. Some beauty concoctions included mercury or lead, meant to fix scent to the skin, but slowly poisoning the wearer over time. Others relied on ingredients that could trigger headaches, rashes, or hallucinations. You find yourself watching a lady's maid add a few drops of essence from a sealed bottle to her mistress's bath. The scent is heavenly, orange blossom and violet, with a twist of something sharp, but as the maid's hands tremble, you wonder if she fears the rare oil itself, or the punishment if she spills a single drop. For the lower classes, the world of perfume is much more humble, but no less inventive. A village girl might rub fresh mint or crushed juniper berries behind her ears before a dance. Women tuck lavender sachets into their chemises, hoping to keep the lice at bay, or rinse their hair in rosemary water to banish the smell of wood smoke. Scented vinegar, a staple in many homes, is splashed on skin and cloth alike, sometimes to ward off illness, sometimes just to please a husband or impress the neighbors. Here's a quirky tidbit. A well-born woman of the city keeps a hollow apple made of glazed pottery hanging from her belt, filled with a scented pomander, a mixture of spices, herbs and wax. She'll lift it to her nose when passing through the foulest streets, or even in church if the incense grows too heavy. In some towns, pomanders are carved into elaborate shapes and passed as gifts between friends, tokens of affection and protection alike. But the power of scent is double-edged. There are whispers of women who use perfume to cast spells, anointing a handkerchief with a lover's favorite flower, or brewing a concoction meant to entice, entrap, or even bewitch. She smelled like the night after a summer storm. Men murmur, sometimes in awe, sometimes in fear. Accusations of witchcraft are never far behind, and a bottle of strong scent found in a widow's room is as likely to draw suspicion as admiration. Historians debate the role of the church in these rituals. Some priests warn that strong perfumes are the mark of pride and seduction, that a woman who smells too sweet is trying to tempt men into sin. Yet monasteries themselves are not free from the power of aroma. Nuns raise gardens of herbs and flowers, distilling their own waters for bathing and for anointing the sick. The contradiction is sharp. Scent as sacrament, scent as sin. At royal courts, perfume becomes a weapon in the game of influence. Courtiers wear layers of scented gloves, silk handkerchiefs soaked in violet or clove, even scented candles burning in private rooms. The ability to command the finest fragrance is a sign of status. To smell bad is social death. There are stories, some true, some embellished, of noble women who use perfume not just to mask their own scent, but to mark their territory, dabbing their handkerchiefs on their rivals' clothes to spread rumors or shame. For every perfume, there's a counterpoint, the fear that scent can carry sickness, as well as beauty. When plague sweeps the cities, women drench their kerchiefs in vinegar of the four thieves, hoping the sharp tang will ward off death. Perfumed masks, stuffed with herbs, are worn by both doctors and the desperate, a thin barrier between breath and oblivion. You see a mother pressing a scented rag to her daughter's face as they hurry through a crowded square, each step a prayer. The craft of perfume has its own risks. Some ingredients are fiercely guarded, and accidents are common. An apothecary's apprentice, too eager or careless, might mix the wrong resin and find herself choking, blinded by fumes. There are rumors of entire families who grew rich on a single formula, only to be driven from town when it was linked to sickness or scandal. Among the poor, the battle for pleasant scent is constant, but less dramatic. A clean shirt dried in the sun, a handful of marigolds hung above the bed, a sprig of thyme sewn into a cap. These small gestures carry hope that you'll be noticed, or at least left in peace. As evening falls, you watch a line of women at a feast, each one trailing a different fragrance: rose and almond, rosemary and mint, musk and something dark and unknown. The men joke about being caught in a garden, but you see how each woman chooses her scent with care, knowing that a single whiff can mean acceptance or suspicion. There is one last story tonight, carried in whispers from the north. A young girl, orphaned by plague, who crafted her own scent from pine needles and wildflowers, selling vials to passers-by until she was accused of sorcery. Whether she was guilty or just clever is lost to time, but women in her village still add pine to their baths, hoping for a little protection from a world that's always watching, always judging. You settle back in your bed, the ghost of lavender on your pillow, and understand that beauty in medieval times was never just what you could see. It was the hush of a hidden room, the swirl of dew in a crowded street, the secrets held tight in every bottle and vial. For every woman, fragrance was a fragile shield, a way to survive, to belong, to claim a piece of sweetness in a world that so often demanded pain. You drift further into the rhythms of daily life, where every hour seems shaped by a relentless, invisible currency. Beauty as barter, beauty as social capital, beauty as the measure by which a woman is bought, sold, courted, or left behind. You begin to see that in this world, beauty is not simply a private affair or a personal wish. It's a public reckoning, a bargaining chip passed from family to family, a tool sharpened for survival. It's market day, and the whole town is out. Women in plain linen tunics and faded aprons move among stalls, hands stained by work and weather. The marriageable girls are dressed in slightly brighter colors, shawls carefully chosen, cheeks pinched to look healthy, lips pressed into modest smiles. In every gathering you hear the same words: "She'd make a good match. Look at her skin," or "Her hair shines like gold. Her mother must be proud." If a girl's eyes are clear and bright, it's said she's blessed, a lucky catch. But if her nails are bitten, her teeth crooked, or her waist too broad, whispers follow her like smoke. Mothers tug their daughters closer, hoping proximity to beauty might somehow be contagious. The idea of beauty as currency isn't just a metaphor. At its most literal, it governs the negotiation of dowries, the alliances between families, and sometimes the very food on a woman's table. In a good year, a family with a beautiful daughter might expect to trade up, secure a wealthier husband, gain better farmland, or join a more powerful household. In a bad year, plainness or a single blemish could mean settling for less, or even slipping down the social ladder. And yet, beauty is always unstable, always one illness or misstep away from ruin. A sudden rash or a crop of boils can bring a promising engagement to a halt. Gossip spreads quickly, sometimes exaggerated by jealous rivals, and a single rumor can cost a woman her future. You hear tales of young ladies whose mothers hide them for weeks at the first sign of chickenpox, praying that the scars will fade before anyone notices. Among the peasantry, the market value of beauty is less dramatic, but no less real. A woman with wide hips and strong arms is admired as a good worker and a likely mother of many children. Clear skin and bright eyes are considered signs of health, a prized trait in a world where illness stalks every winter. In hard times, even a plain girl can rise if she brings energy and humor to the hearth. But beauty, when present, always tips the scale. You wander through a spring fair, watching as women of all ages display their best. Some wear ribbons in their hair, others borrow jewelry from wealthier neighbors for the day. There's a subtle contest in every glance, every whispered word. Men and mothers alike watch, judge, speculate. She's marriageable, she'll fetch a good price. The words are both comforting and cruel. In the shadowy corners of town, not every transaction is so innocent. There are stories rare but persistent of daughters sold to traveling merchants or noblemen, beauty exploited by desperate families in exchange for gold or security. The girls vanish, their fate uncertain. Sometimes they reappear as rich women, sometimes not at all. One tale lingers with you as you walk home in the dusk. A widow, long past the marriage market, who uses the last of her savings to help her granddaughter buy a new dress for the fair. "It's your turn now," she says, her voice soft but insistent. "Don't waste it." The granddaughter, uncertain and a little frightened, clings to her grandmother's hand as a crowd presses close. The value of beauty, handed down, not always as blessing, but as burden. You return to your bed, the night air cool on your skin, and realize that beauty in this world is never simple. It is hope and fear and the thin thread tying one generation to the next. Every woman knows its price, and every family keeps a secret ledger. What was given, what was gained, what was lost. As you drift towards sleep, you carry the weight of all those bargains. In medieval times, beauty is currency, and the world is always keeping score. The flicker of a candle's flame, the distant tolling of bells, and the cold stone floors beneath your feet remind you that for medieval women, beauty is not merely an economic asset or a set of private rituals. It is entangled in the doctrines and doubts of faith. Tonight you pass through the archway of a church, joining the congregation of a world where the pursuit of beauty is both condemned and quietly encouraged. The church looms large over every thought, every mirror, every comb. What does it mean, you wonder, to desire beauty when salvation itself seems to hang in the balance? You settle onto a wooden pew, the incense thick and the windows flickering with saints too perfect to be real. Above you, the priest speaks of humility, of vanity as a gateway to sin. Women, he warns, must not fall prey to pride. Your beauty is a gift, he intones, meant for God and your husband alone. His voice echoes through the nave, and you sense the discomfort ripple through the women around you. Some with cheeks flushed from rosewater, others carefully barefaced, heads bowed low. Yet outside the sermons the contradictions abound. Nuns keep rose gardens and distill scented oils in convent. Still rooms writing treatises on herbal remedies for health and godliness. A bishop's sister is known for her miraculous complexion, credited to both prayer and a secret ointment made from olive oil and crushed violets. Even the Madonna in the stained glass window, her face impossibly serene and glowing, serves as a model for the features every woman is told to aspire to. You walk through the cloisters, passing nuns in white and black habits, their hair hidden beneath starched linen, their skin scrubbed to the quick. In private, you hear them whisper about the sin of vanity, but also about the small pleasures they miss, the feel of sunlight on uncovered skin, the joy of plaiting a friend's hair, the memory of laughter at a festival, a ribbon tied around a wrist. Some women choose the convent to escape the pressures of marriage and motherhood, others arrive as punishment or by force. Here at least they are safe from the marketplace, but not from the longing for beauty. You hear a tale in the vestry, a legend about Saint Agnes, whose hair grew miraculously long and thick when Roman soldiers tried to strip her naked, covering her like a cloak and preserving her modesty. In paintings and prayers, her beauty is always emphasized, a weapon against evil, as well as an emblem of virtue. There's a subtle message here. Beauty is allowed, even celebrated, if it serves the purposes of faith. But for ordinary women, the daily dance is perilous. Too much adornment, and you risk the label of harlot or sinner. Too little, and you may be accused of neglecting the gifts God gave you. You watch a young wife agonize over whether to wear a string of glass beads to mass. Her husband insists she look her best, but her mother warns against drawing eyes. The priest says little, but you see his gaze linger. Who is right? The question goes unanswered, a source of endless anxiety. Confession is another battlefield. Women kneel and confess their pride, their longing for admiration, their secret jealousy of others' beauty. The priest listens, then prescribes a penance, prayers, fasting, or in rare cases a period of plain dress. Some confess simply to be safe, to ward off gossip or suspicion. Others speak honestly, hoping for guidance. The boundaries between sin and survival, between pride and self-preservation, are never clear. Historians debate whether women found ways to use the church's teachings to their advantage. Some say clever women used modesty as a tool, dressing simply in public but enhancing their beauty in private, or for the eyes of a chosen suitor. Others point to the rise of beauty saints, female martyrs, venerated for their looks, whose stories offered a template for navigating the line between admiration and accusation. You watch as, after Mass, a group of women gather in the churchyard, comparing notes on the latest sumptuary edict. No pearls for women under 30, one recites, rolling her eyes, as if the bishop's niece will ever obey. They laugh, adjusting veils and shawls, and you sense a subtle defiance, a willingness to bend the rules, to find loopholes, to claim beauty even in the face of condemnation. But for those who draw too much attention, danger is never far away. You hear the story of a woman accused of bewitching the parish priest with her beauty. She is brought before the elders, questioned about her use of scented oils and enchanting laughter. Whether she is guilty or simply envied, the outcome is the same: a warning, a period of public penance, and in some cases banishment from the village. The paradox is everywhere. The church asks women to hide their beauty, but still uses it to decorate their altars and sell their stories. Women are urged to be modest, but also to please their husbands and reflect God's order in the world. It's an impossible task, one that leaves most feeling perpetually guilty, anxious, or resentful. In the darkness of the night, as you slip through the silent streets, you glimpse a woman lighting a candle at the foot of a saint's statue, praying not for forgiveness, but for grace to be seen, to be safe, to be enough. Her hands are rough, her eyes tired, but for a moment in the glow of the candle, she looks radiant, her beauty unburdened by rules or fears. As you settle back beneath your covers, you realize how deeply faith shapes every moment, every choice, every glance in the mirror. For the medieval woman, beauty is a field sown with doubt and hope alike, blessed by saints, policed by priests, cherished in secret. It is both a promise and a threat, a reason to rejoice and a cause for tears. You close your eyes, the echo of chants fading into the night, and wonder how many women have whispered the same prayers, for protection, for love, for the impossible peace of simply being seen and accepted just as they are. You turn away from the candlelit hush of churches and convents and step out under the open sky, where another battlefield unfolds, not in the heart or the soul, but across the very surface of the skin. It's here that you discover the most dangerous obsession of all, the relentless pursuit of paleness. Across Europe, through centuries of war, famine, and plague, women are told their worth glimmers brightest in a face as pale as moonlight, untouched by sun, as if hardship itself must never leave a mark. You join a crowd gathered for the midsummer fair, where laughter and music fill the square. Everywhere you look, women shield their faces with veils, hats, or the wide sleeves of their gowns. The sun is not a blessing but an enemy. Its golden touch betrays you as someone who labors outdoors, who cannot afford the privilege of staying inside, safe from sweat and soil. It is a strange irony. Those who toil for survival must wear their struggle openly, while the well-born guard their complexions like treasure. You watch a noble woman's morning ritual. The window shutters close to keep out the morning rays. Her maid mixes a paste of white lead and vinegar, spreading it carefully over brow and cheek, followed by a powder dusted on with swan's down. The result is a face impossibly pale, gleaming under candlelight, transformed into the very image that songs and poets praise. But beneath the flawless mask, her lips are cracked and her eyes rimmed red, the telltale signs of poison already at work. Some remedies seem harmless at first: rosewater to soothe the skin, crushed pearl to add shimmer, honey masks for softness. But it's the endless layering, the constant battle to erase freckles, redness, and any sign of outdoor life that takes its toll. You see girls kept indoors for weeks before a feast, told to walk only by moonlight or behind drawn curtains. Even in the depths of winter, when sun is rare and the hearths burn all day, the fear of colour persists. Among the poor, the standards shift only slightly. Peasant women can't afford imported powders or the time to hide from the sun, but they find their own remedies: scrubbing with sour whey, rubbing apple peels on their cheeks, bathing in rainwater. Mothers teach daughters to walk home after dusk, to cover their heads with scarves, to sit at the back of the church where their faces won't catch the morning light. Beauty for them is as much about what you hide as what you show. You see the pressure everywhere. Young girls are warned not to laugh too loudly or run in the fields, lest colour rise in their faces. Brides are judged on the clarity of their skin. A freckle or sunspot is a flaw to be excused or hidden. At markets and dances, you hear quiet snickers when a farm girl dares to appear with windburned cheeks. Her attempt to mimic the fashions of the court, met with ridicule. And yet sometimes nature conspires against even the most careful. A single week of harvest can darken a woman's arms and neck for months. The lines where veils and collars end are carefully scrubbed, but the stains linger, a badge of work and survival. In some villages, girls rub lemon or sorrel on their skin, hoping to bleach out the sun's mark, trading one sting for another. Not all pale faces are truly healthy, of course. In the chill of winter, a ghostly complexion might mean fever, hunger, or worse. But in the courts and manors, paleness is always praised, always envied. There are rumours of women faking illness, even bloodletting or fasting to keep their skin clear and untanned. One story tells of a lady who refused to leave her chamber for an entire season. So afraid was she of freckles before her betrothal. She emerged so pale she fainted at her own wedding, to equal parts admiration and alarm. The contradiction is everywhere. The colour that signals health among the poor signals shame among the rich. You watch as a mother tucks her daughter into bed, cautioning her to sleep on your back, so the blood won't rise in your cheeks. Another teaches her to wash her face in cold dew, believing it will close the pores and keep the sun out. They are acts of hope and fear, carried down through generations. Here's a story that lingers. A girl, daughter of a tanner, who dares to appear at a festival without powder or veil. Her skin is brown as ripe wheat, her smile wide. Some laugh, others stare, but a visiting merchant's son is taken by her confidence, and by summer's end she's married and moved away, her fortune made not by the colour of her skin, but by her refusal to hide it. Historians still argue if such tales are wishful thinking, or proof that beauty in the end is whatever catches the eye and won't let go. Even among nuns, the battle for paleness rages. Those of high birth keep to their cells, read by candlelight, and avoid outdoor labour whenever possible. You hear one nun joke that her hands are so white she might be mistaken for an angel, or a corpse if I'm not careful. The others laugh, but the joke is sharp, edged with truth. The price of paleness is steep, and not just in health. The powders stain clothes and sheets. The constant need for shade limits freedom and joy. For some, it means never seeing the world beyond a curtained window, never feeling the warmth of sun on bare arms. For others, it's a daily ritual, one more burden in a life already crowded with them. Historians debate whether men noticed or cared as much as women believed. Some sources suggest that men valued health and strength as much as beauty, especially among the poor. Yet the art and poetry of the age never tire of praising white skin, and mothers at least never stop worrying over the colour of their daughters' cheeks. As dusk settles, you see women gathering in a courtyard, sharing recipes and advice, comparing scars and freckles, laughing at their failures and small successes. One offers a salve made from cucumber and rose oil, another a secret blend of chalk and flour. They test, they hope, They mourn what cannot be changed. You realize as you watch that the quest for paleness is more than a trend. It is a symptom of longing, of the human need to be chosen, cherished, kept safe. In a world that measures women by surfaces, every blemish feels like a blow, every new freckle a threat. The effort is constant, the peace it brings fleeting. As you lie back, the last light fading from the sky, you feel the cool brush of linen on your own face, the memory of all those women painted and powdered, hiding and hoping. Beauty, in medieval times, is not a gift. It is a daily siege, fought with whatever weapons a woman can find. The market quiets, and the town begins to close its shutters, but within the hush of drawing rooms, kitchens and cold stone courtyards, another war simmers just beneath the surface, a battle not between nations, but between neighbors, sisters, mothers, and daughters. You begin to sense the truth. Beauty in the medieval world is rarely a solitary pursuit. It is a public contest, a swirling current of envy, rivalry, and the subtle politics of appearance. Every gesture, every glance, every word carries hidden meaning, and the cost of standing out or failing to can be painfully high. You pass by a noblewoman's parlour, where daughters and ladies-in-waiting huddle together, pretending to embroider, but really watching each other from the corners of their eyes. Gossip curls through the room like wood smoke. Whose hair shines brightest this year? Who has the clearest skin, the softest hands? There are whispered remarks about Lady Cecily's new lead powder, so pale it must be dangerous, and about Joan's sudden flush, surely not just from dancing. One girl sits quietly twisting her ring, her eyes flicking between rivals, wondering if she'll be noticed or forgotten. Outside these walls, in the village square, beauty is less refined but no less fiercely policed. Girls cluster at the well, comparing their reflections in the rippling water, half laughing, half judging. One teases another about a sunburn, another boasts that her braid is longer this week. But underneath there is always calculation. Whose looks will win the miller's son? Whose will earn the most admiration or provoke jealousy? Mothers look on, sometimes proud, sometimes wary, aware that praise one day can turn to suspicion or malice the next. But envy is not only about what is seen, it is also about what is imagined, suspected, or feared. You hear stories of women accused of hoarding secret beauty recipes or stealing the charms of others. A mother might caution her daughter to never let a rival borrow her comb or scarf, lest your beauty go with it. The belief that envy itself has power is strong. In many regions, women wear amulets or pins shaped like eyes, designed to ward off the evil glance that can wither crops or dry up beauty overnight. Within families, the rivalry can be even more complicated. Sisters compare themselves in whispers and glances, measuring whose eyes are bluer, whose lips fuller, whose prospects brighter. A plain younger daughter may resent her older sister's suitors, while the beautiful one feels the pressure to live up to everyone's hopes. The household peace is fragile, easily broken by a careless compliment or a careless slight. In the courts, rivalry is sometimes disguised as friendship. Ladies share their beauty secrets, lend each other combs or pots of face powder, but never reveal the full recipe or the real source of a precious ingredient. Alliances shift as quickly as fashions. Today's confidant may be tomorrow's enemy. Some women hire their own beauty spies among the servants, hoping to learn what rivals are doing behind closed doors. A stolen recipe can make the difference between being admired or overlooked at the next feast. There are rare stories of open conflict. At a wedding feast in Gascony, a noble woman is said to have dumped a jug of wine over her rival's head after discovering that her gown had been copied stitch for stitch. In another town, a baker's wife slips vinegar into the rinse water of her neighbor's daughter, hoping to dull her rival's hair before a festival. Sometimes it's only words, an offhand remark about looking tired, a joke about a new wrinkle, or a fading freckle. These little wounds add up, leaving scars as real as any made by a knife. The church, too, is aware of this rivalry. Priests warn against the sin of envy, but they also know that jealousy is as much a part of the human heart as hope or love. Some churches even hold special masses to cleanse the community of envy before big festivals, hoping to keep the peace. Yet everyone knows the old saying, beauty divides as much as it delights. Historians debate whether envy and rivalry made life more exciting or more perilous for medieval women. Some point to the creativity it inspired, the lengths to which women would go to stand out or defend their status. Others see only pain, the friendships broken, the suspicion and isolation, the feeling of never being enough. You hear in the stories the voices of women who never felt safe, who learned early to hide their true selves behind laughter or lowered eyes. Here's a story whispered by a tired midwife. Two sisters in her village spent their lives competing, each trying new remedies, new fashions, new charms. One married well, the other not at all, but in the end, it was the plainer sister who nursed the beauty through illness, their rivalry finally outlasted by kindness. Beauty fades, but envy lingers if you let it, the midwife says. You sense she has lived this truth herself. Not all rivalry is unkind. In the flicker of candlelight you see women laughing together, sharing tricks for softening hands or brightening eyes, comforting each other when an outbreak of pox leaves scars or when the years begin to show. There is pride too in outshining a rival, but sometimes there's relief in knowing someone else is carrying the burden of expectation. You notice, as the months go by, that envy is often mingled with fear of losing what little power beauty brings, fear of falling from favor, fear of being left behind. A woman who grows ill or ages quickly might find herself suddenly friendless, her former rivals now pitying or dismissive. Others turn to bitterness, blaming rivals or fate for every misfortune. But sometimes, envy leads to unexpected solidarity. During a terrible winter, a group of women in a remote village pool their beauty remedies, sharing what little they have so all may look their best at the spring festival. Let the men argue over cattle, they joke. We'll see whose cheeks bloom brightest. For a time, the rivalry softens, replaced by laughter and shared hope. As the years pass, you see the cycle repeat. New girls growing into beauty, old rivalries flaring and fading, friendships kindled and quenched. Beauty in this world is never simple, never free from the shadow of envy. It can bring power, love, and admiration, but it can also bring loneliness, suspicion, and heartbreak. As you curl up for the night, you understand the true weight of this endless contest. For every winner, there are many who lose, and even victory is never secure. In the medieval world, beauty is not just a blessing, but a constant test, measured not only in admiration, but in the wary glances of those who stand beside you. Darkness creeps closer, and the warmth of shared laughter at the day's end fades into something heavier, something more dangerous. As the world grows quiet, a new fear stirs, the risk that beauty, so carefully cultivated and desperately protected, might itself be turned against you. In the flicker of torchlight, you feel the shiver of centuries, stories of women whose beauty crossed some invisible threshold and drew the worst kind of attention, not the envy of rivals, but the suspicion of the powerful. For in medieval times there was a thin and shifting line between being admired and being accused of witchcraft. You hear the stories whispered first by old women at the edge of the market, or by firelight when the wind howls at the shutters. Did you hear about Marjorie, with hair like gold and eyes too green for any honest soul? They say she charmed the bailiff into forgiving her debt. They say her garden blooms in winter, or that she keeps a silver mirror under her pillow, a gift from the devil. It's always the same. A woman steps beyond the boundaries of her world, too beautiful, too clever, too lucky, and soon suspicion grows like mold in a damp cellar. You pass through a town square at dusk, watching as women gather for the evening, faces shadowed, voices low. You hear how a young woman's suitor fell suddenly ill, and how her beauty, once praised, is now suspect. She must have given him a potion, neighbors mutter. She's too pretty for a girl of her station. A mole on her cheek, a new dress, a scent of foreign perfume, each becomes evidence for those who wish to see it. The price of standing out, even for a moment, can be terrifyingly high. It is not just outsiders who judge. Sometimes it is mothers and sisters, neighbors and friends who begin the whisper campaign. Fear breeds cruelty. An unmarried woman who draws too much attention, who is visited by strangers or rumored to have rejected a suitor, is often the first to be accused. The irony is sharp. Women are told to be beautiful, to attract good matches, to please the eyes of their families and communities. Yet if they succeed too well, they can find themselves alone, exposed and defenseless. You visit a small church where an anxious priest tells a group of women that vanity invites the devil. He warns them to hide their beauty, to avoid mirrors, to pray for humility. Yet even he cannot help glancing at the youngest, whose hair catches the last light of day. Later you see her sitting alone, shoulders hunched, tugging her shawl forward to hide her face. Historians debate whether the church's wariness of beauty was a true doctrine or a convenient tool for social control. Some say priests genuinely feared that beautiful women could lead men into temptation and ruin. Others believe the language of sin and seduction was simply another way to limit women's power, especially those who were already vulnerable. Whatever the route, the outcome is the same. Beauty is a risky gift, to be managed carefully, sometimes hidden, sometimes sacrificed for safety. Not all accusations end in disaster, but every woman knows the stories. The burned, the banished, the broken. Sometimes, the accused are saved by powerful families, or by the intervention of a priest who vouches for their innocence. More often they are quietly sent away, or forced to confess to things they never did. Yes, I used an herb for my hair. Yes, I prayed for clear skin. Yes, I wished for love. The confessions are meant to end the nightmare, but the shame and suspicion linger. You hear a story from the coast. A fisherman's daughter, renowned for her beauty, is accused of calling storms with a song. She is locked away for a season. When she returns, her hair is cut short, her laughter is gone, her eyes fixed on the ground. The village is safer, they say, but something precious has been lost forever. In noble courts, the fear takes a different shape. Beauty is both shield and sword, but even the highest born are not immune. A queen with too many admirers may find herself the target of intrigue, accused of enchanting her husband or poisoning rivals with beauty balms. Artists are told to tone down the brilliance of a lady's eyes in portraits to keep her within reason. Maids are fired for spreading rumors about their mistress's beauty rituals, and every new potion is tested on a servant first just in case. One story lingers. A noble woman, envied for her complexion, discovers that her favorite face powder contains a rare herb known for its toxicity. When a rival falls ill, suspicion falls immediately on the beautiful one, her charm now a weapon, her every gesture reinterpreted as cunning. In the end, she is forced to leave court, her reputation as a sorceress never quite erased. Yet, for all the fear and suspicion, some women manage to use their beauty as armor, learning when to shine and when to hide. You see a clever widow who feigns plainness in public, but dazzles in private salons where wit and charm are prized over innocence. You meet a healer who is rumored to have the hands of a witch. Because she can banish scars and brighten hair, she shrugs off the slurs, focusing on those who need her. Here's a peculiar custom from the north. On certain holy days, women wash their faces in river water at dawn, believing it will protect them from both envy and witchcraft. A ribbon tied around the wrist, a sprig of rowan in the bodice, a prayer whispered before sleep, each a small defense in a world where beauty attracts not just love, but danger. In the end, you see that every woman learns her own strategy. Some hide, some fight, some turn the accusations into legend, outliving their enemies by sheer stubbornness. Others are lost to the shadows, their stories ending not with triumph but with silence. As the night deepens and the last embers burn low, you realize how fragile the line is, how easily admiration can shift into suspicion, how quickly a blessing can become a curse. The medieval woman, so often told that beauty is her greatest asset, is forced to navigate a labyrinth of risk, never quite knowing when her reflection will turn against her. You curl into your imagined blankets, the chill of old fears pressing close, and understand why so many prayers begin with "Protect me from those who wish me harm." In the world you travel tonight, beauty is never just a delight. It is a dangerous inheritance, guarded fiercely, never fully safe. You slip into the hush that follows midnight, where secrets are thick as fog and ancient remedies sit waiting on dusty shelves. The flickering light of a tallow candle catches on glass jars, pewter bowls, and bunches of herbs hung from rafters, reminders that in the medieval world, beauty is never just an accident of birth or good fortune. It is a project, a daily regimen, and often a question of life or death. Tonight you drift through a landscape where medicine and myth are tightly entwined, where every woman's search for beauty crosses paths with danger, hope, and a tangle of medical superstition. In the far corner of a small stone house, a mother prepares her daughter's beauty tonic, a murky infusion of roots, honey, and vinegar, said to ensure bright eyes and smooth skin. The recipe is old, passed down through generations, and its efficacy is hotly debated. Too much will make you sick, the mother warns, but just enough, and you'll shine. There is a trust in such rituals, a faith inherited as much as the tonic itself. You watch as the daughter hesitates, wrinkles her nose and drinks anyway, willing to risk the taste for the promise it brings. Historians still argue whether most medieval beauty remedies worked at all, or whether they were simply placebos, meant to give hope in a world where so little was certain. Some records show careful notes: honey to soften skin, nettles for hair growth, vinegar for a clear complexion. Medical treatises, copied by monks and scattered through Europe, recommend everything from bathing in goat's milk to pressing leeches to the cheeks to achieve a healthy pallor. The faith in these medical cures is absolute, sometimes bolstered by a local wise woman, sometimes blessed by the parish priest. Yet for every hopeful ritual, there are those that carry a hidden risk. A noblewoman, hoping to stay young and lovely, applies a salve made of mercury and herbs. The initial result is remarkable: smooth, white skin, a soft glow in the candlelight. But soon her hands begin to tremble, her moods swing sharply, and sores break out beneath her sleeves. The physicians are called, but they argue endlessly. Is it the will of God, or a punishment for vanity, or simply a sickness from within? No one blames the beauty remedy, though it quietly vanishes from her dresser. A mainstream fact: many medieval beauty treatments were rooted in the emerging science of humoral medicine, the belief that the body's health and appearance depended on the balance of four fluids: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. A pale complexion might be attributed to an excess of phlegm, while red cheeks could mean too much blood. Physicians prescribed bloodletting, diet changes, herbal poultices, and even corrective baths to bring the humours back into balance, with beauty as one measure of success. You listen as a healer in a bustling city explains her newest recipe for radiant skin, a mask of mashed beans, vinegar, and egg whites. Her reputation rests on these small miracles, and women come from miles around, clutching coins and hopes alike. One swears her freckles faded after a single treatment. Another says the remedy only left her skin dry and tight, but she comes back anyway, caught by the hope that this time it might work. In the countryside, the folk wisdom runs deeper still. At dawn, girls are sent to the riverbank to wash their faces in dew, believed to bring a glow that lasts all day. Brides sleep with garlands of wildflowers beneath their pillows to draw out beauty from dreams. A favorite recipe among shepherds' wives mixes sheep's milk, honey, and crushed rose petals for a morning face wash. Sometimes it's not the remedy that matters, but the certainty that anything can be done to sway fate. But hope has its price. Here's a quirky tidbit. In some villages, women try to lighten their hair with a mixture of urine and ash, a technique said to come from the Italian courts. The process is harsh, the result often uneven and brassy, but it's a secret shared in giggles and gasps behind barn doors. Another popular myth holds that rubbing rabbit fat into the skin can smooth wrinkles and prevent the sadness that comes with age. The risks, as you imagine, are many, not least the smell. Medical myths also blur with the supernatural. If a woman loses her hair, she may be told she's the victim of a curse, and she'll seek out a charm or a priest before trying any herbal remedy. To ward off evil eyes, some women sew tiny bits of coral or jet into their sleeves, believing it will keep beauty from turning to misfortune. The lines between medicine and magic are thin, and few risk ignoring either. The church, as always, hovers over these rituals, sometimes blessing, sometimes condemning, but always watching. A nun writes in her diary about God's herbs: lavender, rosemary, thyme, meant to soothe both body and soul. She admits, in a rare moment of candor, that she secretly favors elder tea to keep her skin smooth. In the same entry, she warns against devilish ointments, remedies said to be favored by witches, though the recipes are nearly identical to those used by her own convent sisters. There are stories of women who paid dearly for medical mistakes. A widow, desperate to hide a scar, applies a poultice of quicklime, only to end up with a wound that refuses to heal. A merchant's daughter, eager for bright eyes, drinks a tonic heavy with wormwood and loses her appetite for months. The blame for such failures shifts as quickly as the wind. Sometimes it's the fault of the healer, sometimes the stubbornness of the patient, sometimes the mysterious will of the heavens. Here's a fringe tidbit. In certain remote valleys, women gather in secret to share their most prized recipes and gossip about the latest failures. These beauty nights are half medical conference, half witches' sabbath, with songs, prayers, and shared laughter. Outsiders are not welcome, and the recipes passed hand to hand may never be written down, surviving only in memory. It's not only young women who seek these cures. Older women, haunted by wrinkles and the pain of aching joints, seek salves to restore the bloom of youth. A favorite among grandmothers is a mixture of beeswax, olive oil, and a hint of marjoram, melted over the fire and rubbed into the skin before sleep. Sometimes the ritual is as comforting as the results. An hour by the hearth, the soft scent of herbs, the gentle hands of a daughter or friend. As you move through this world of hopeful science and shadowy cures, you sense the common thread, the longing to be seen, to matter, to hold on to a little more power in a world that offers so few chances for control. The rituals may be flawed, the recipes sometimes dangerous, but the hope behind them is achingly real. You settle back, the memory of herbal scents filling your senses, and realize that for every danger, every disappointment, there is also a small triumph. A day when the skin feels smooth, when the hair shines, when a glance in the mirror brings a smile instead of dread. In the end, the pursuit of beauty is a form of resilience, a way for medieval women to carve out their own meaning and dignity, even in a world that so often refuses them both. Sleep seems distant tonight, as you linger at the candle's edge, contemplating the fear that drives women to defy time itself. In this world, beauty is never simply a birthright. It is a force both fragile and fierce, constantly threatened by age, illness, and misfortune. You find yourself swept into the most exhausting battle of all, the war against aging, a struggle that begins in girlhood and for many never truly ends. You awaken to the low clatter of morning. In the shadows, a middle-aged woman washes her face with rainwater caught in a wooden bowl. Her hands linger over the lines around her mouth and eyes, tracing the history of laughter and worry, hunger and heartbreak. But there is little time for reverie. Every new wrinkle, every grey hair, every sag of flesh becomes a fresh source of anxiety and a new challenge to overcome. Here, in the medieval world, youth is a currency that devalues with terrifying speed. The pressure is everywhere, and it begins early. Young girls, not even 10, are warned against squinting in the sun, against laughter that might crease the eyes, against frowning that could leave a permanent mark. Grandmothers caution, Every scowl writes a story on your face. Older women advise sleeping flat on the back, so your cheeks don't sag. It's as if aging itself is a preventable error, one more thing for which women must take responsibility. The medical texts echo this obsession, recommending endless regimens for staving off old age. Honey is said to seal in youth. Vinegar keeps the flesh tight. A bath in ass's milk, if you can afford it, restores freshness. Women pluck early grey hairs, massage their faces with almond oil, rub onions on their scalps to spur hair growth, and consult herbalists for potions to delay the inevitable. There are even stories of noble women sleeping with their faces wrapped in strips of soft cloth, hoping to preserve the contours of their youth. You watch a group of women at market, comparing remedies in hushed voices. Boil rosemary and drink the water for a month. You'll never age, one promises. Mash beans with rose petals. Spread it on your face every morning, says another. Yet, beneath the bravado, there is an undertone of fear. Each knows women who faded too soon, who were put aside by husbands, ignored at feasts, or sent to live out their days in the cold corners of family homes. Beauty, when lost, is rarely mourned in public, but in private it becomes a haunting absence. In the noble courts, older women with the means to maintain their appearance sometimes find themselves wielding new power. The dowager, still youthful at 40, might control family fortunes or advise young brides, but even for these women, every new beauty, every fresh face at court is a potential rival. Jealousies simmer and alliances shift. Men, especially those of rank, rarely age alone. A new young wife is always a possibility, and stories abound of noble women who fade into the background when a younger bride arrives. Among the poor, the realities of aging are harsher. A woman who loses her teeth, whose hair turns to iron, whose hands are rough from work, finds her options narrowing. Still, she may wield influence, especially as a mother or grandmother, a healer or wise woman, but the visible signs of aging remain a source of vulnerability. There are jokes about old hags and crones and stories told to frighten children about the dangers of disobedience, all embodied in the figure of the aging woman. You watch as mothers scold daughters for carelessness, for climbing trees or running in the wind. You'll age before your time, they warn. Yet in quieter moments, you see these same mothers pause, touching the faces of their sleeping children, remembering the days when they too were praised for smooth skin and shining eyes. Not all women fight the passage of time. Some, freed from the expectations of youth and beauty, embrace a new kind of strength. You meet a village healer, her hair white as milk, her back bent from years in the fields. No one calls her beautiful, but her presence commands respect. She knows every plant in the woods, every ache and pain, and people come from miles around to seek her advice. She laughs at talk of beauty. The only way to stay young is to die young, she says. Otherwise, you'd best learn to live with what the years bring. There are rare stories of women who find contentment in age. A widow who, free from marriage and childbearing, begins to paint her face, not to look younger, but simply for the pleasure of colour. An abbess who writes poetry about the beauty of old hands. A group of grandmothers who gather in the shade to share stories, their faces lined but alight with humour. Still, most women carry the hope that something, anything, can keep time at bay. You see secret rituals performed at moonrise, masks mixed by candlelight, 1,000 whispered prayers for just one more year. The effort is endless, the peace fleeting. Some days, a woman may find comfort in a compliment, a fleeting glance, the way her own face glows in the firelight. Other days, she despairs at the relentless march of change. You drift with these women through the long twilight of their lives, feeling the sharp ache of loss and the quiet hope of renewal. You see a woman light a candle for every year she has lived, her prayers a blend of gratitude and longing. Another teaches her granddaughter the recipe for a face balm, laughing as she admits it never truly worked. In these moments, age becomes something to honor, even if the wider world still resists. As the night grows still, you sense the exhaustion of centuries, the hope, the fear, the secret pride in every line and silver strand. You settle beneath your blankets, the whisper of a lullaby in your ears, and feel the ache and grace of growing older. Beauty in the medieval world is always under siege, always slipping away, but in its passing something else remains, something softer, deeper, and enduring. The wind rattles loose shutters and the coals in the hearth glow faint, casting restless shadows across the stone floor. As you listen, you realize that not all beauty rituals are practiced by daylight or with the blessing of parents, priests, or physicians. Some rituals, the most secret, the most daring, are reserved for the deepest part of the night, when the world is quiet and the risk of discovery is greatest. Tonight, you step quietly through the dark corridors and up creaking stairs, catching glimpses of forbidden beauty rites hidden behind locked doors and whispered among close friends. In this world, there are rules for everything: when to rise, what to wear, how to eat, whom to love. But the rules of beauty are perhaps the most strictly policed and the most frequently broken. During the day, a woman is watched by her family, her neighbors, the clergy, and her rivals. At night, however, the boundaries soften, lamps are lit, secrets are shared, and the search for beauty slips into the realm of the forbidden. You hear laughter drifting from a servant's attic. There, a trio of girls sit cross-legged on a battered trunk, faces smeared with a stolen mixture of cream and ground lily root. One brushes her eyebrows with goose fat, another massages her cheeks with the last drops of a rare oil, and the third shows off a homemade tint made from beet juice and honey. They swap stories, tease each other, and for a few precious moments, they are free from judgment and expectation. Here there are no mothers to scold or mistresses to demand, only the shared hope that tomorrow's skin will be a little clearer, tomorrow's eyes a little brighter. Forbidden beauty rituals are not limited to the young or the poor. In the dark, even noble women become conspirators. You watch a lady of the manor slip from her chambers after midnight, carrying a lamp and a heavy bundle of linen. She descends to the kitchens, where her most trusted maid has prepared a steaming bath, infused with herbs, rosemary, sage, and marjoram, all believed to banish wrinkles and ward off nightmares. The lady lowers herself into the fragrant water, sighs in relief, and closes her eyes. For half an hour she is neither wife nor mother, mistress nor pawn, just a woman clinging to youth and comfort in secret. You listen to a servant's story, a young girl whose mistress sent her to the apothecary under cover of darkness, armed with a list of strange and costly ingredients. "No one must know," the lady whispered, pressing a coin into her hand. The apothecary, no stranger to secrets, filled the order without a word. The girl returned with a vial of imported oil, said to smooth the skin and banish dark spots, and a pouch of dried petals for steeping in rose water. The lady rewarded her well, and told her to forget the errand ever happened. In the countryside you find a different kind of secrecy. Here, beauty rituals blend with old magic and local superstition. At the edge of a forest, an old woman welcomes a group of girls to her hut for a midnight masque. She mixes wild honey, clay from the riverbank, and a handful of stinging nettles, warning the girls not to speak a word until the masque dries. "Silence seals the magic," she says, "and beauty is a gift best kept quiet." Whether the recipe works or not is almost beside the point. The real power lies in the bond between the girls, the thrill of the forbidden, and the hope that perhaps this time the world might be kinder. A mainstream fact: many beauty rituals were passed down in secret, whispered from mother to daughter, or shared among close friends. Recipes for lotions, face washes, and hair oils were rarely written down, both to protect family secrets and to avoid the watchful eyes of priests and meddlers. The scarcity of written evidence makes it hard for historians to reconstruct the full range of medieval beauty practices, but the oral tradition is strong, and echoes of these rituals survive in folk tales, songs, and lullabies. Sometimes, forbidden beauty rituals are born out of necessity. You meet a peasant woman whose hands are scarred from endless work. She waits until the house is asleep, before rubbing her skin with goose grease and lavender, stolen from her mistress's garden. In the morning she will hide her hands in her apron, but for a few hours each night she can pretend they are soft and white, like those of the noble women she serves. Here's another story. A young wife, married to an older merchant, discovers that a rival has accused her of using devil's ointment to keep her husband's interest. She cannot afford to be caught with any suspicious creams or powders. Instead, she bathes her face each night in cool well water, whispering a prayer for beauty and safety. The ritual is simple, almost powerless, but it gives her a measure of control in a world where so much is decided by others. Not all forbidden beauty rituals are physical. You hear of women who rise before dawn to compose poems or songs, believing that a bright mind is the fairest face. Others learn to read and write in secret, copying recipes from old manuscripts by candlelight. In some towns, a clever tongue and quick wit can outshine smooth skin or shining hair, but even these gifts must often be hidden, lest a woman draw too much attention or be accused of pride. The risk of discovery is real. Punishments range from gossip and social ostracism to harsher fates, loss of employment, exile, or even trial for sorcery. Yet the rituals persist, adapted and reinvented by every generation. You see mothers teaching daughters to hide their beauty supplies in false-bottomed chests, to wash secretly in the rain, to trust only those who have proven their loyalty. A fringe tidbit. In the far north there is a story of a village where women gather in the old church once a year, under cover of darkness, to trade beauty secrets and share the year's successes and failures. They leave gifts for the next year's gathering: a vial of oil, a comb, a jar of honey, symbols of trust and hope for the future. The forbidden rituals are not always successful. Sometimes they lead to heartbreak or disappointment, a rash that won't heal, a potion that stains the skin, a rival who discovers your secret and spreads rumors. But they also offer moments of joy and community, small acts of defiance against a world that demands so much and offers so little in return. As the night grows deepest, you listen to the sighs and laughter, the prayers and incantations whispered in rooms both grand and humble. You realize that for medieval women, beauty is not just a social currency or a set of impossible ideals. It is a space of agency and resistance, a secret language spoken in the dark, a hope passed quietly from hand to hand. You lie back and imagine the countless women across centuries who have risked much for the chance to feel beautiful, even if only for a night. In their secrets, their courage, and their dreams, you find a kind of hope stronger than any ointment, a light that refuses to be put out. Morning creeps in, pale and slow, slipping through thin shutters and glancing off chipped bronze mirrors. As you awaken in this medieval world, you realize that the rituals, the remedies, and the fierce competition for beauty have all shaped not only women's daily routines, but also the very way they see themselves. Tonight's journey brings you to the heart of reflection itself, the strange, shifting relationship between medieval women and their own images. For here, in the flicker of candlelight and the shimmer of distorted glass, beauty's battlefield is waged anew, every day, in the mind. You might imagine the mirror as an innocent tool, a simple sheet of polished metal or glass, offering a clear, honest reflection. But in reality, the medieval mirror is a mysterious and unreliable companion. Most women know their faces best through water, catching glimpses in a well, a river, a rain barrel. Those lucky enough to possess a mirror, a luxury, often of the wealthy or well-connected, peer into curved bronze, smoky glass, or polished silver. The reflection that stares back is rarely true. The lines are blurred, the colors warped, the whole image more rumor than fact. You watch as a noblewoman sits at her dressing table. Her mirror, imported at great expense from Venice, shows her face with odd shadows and wavering lines. She tilts her head, adjusts her veil, frowns at a patch of darkness near her jaw. Is it a flaw? Is it the glass? Her maid assures her she is beautiful, but uncertainty lingers. There is power in the mirror, but also deep vulnerability. Every day she searches for evidence of change, an extra wrinkle, a faded flush, a spot where powder refuses to hide the truth. The mirror becomes both judge and confessor. In the village, mirrors are even rarer. You watch a peasant girl crouch over a rain barrel, combing her hair and watching ripples distort her reflection. She asks her friend if her braid is straight, if her cheeks are too red, if the new spot by her nose is bad. Her mother tells her not to worry, that true beauty cannot be washed away by a little sun or wind. But her friends giggle and the boys' glances at market tell another story. Here's a quirky tidbit. In some regions, girls are warned not to look too long at their own faces by moonlight or in water, lest a spirit steal their reflection and bring bad luck. A song is sung at bedtime, half lullaby, half warning, reminding girls that mirrors can lie and that true beauty is known only to God and those who love you. But the lure of reflection is powerful. In noble courts, women exchange tiny mirrors as gifts, each one a token of trust or affection. Girls dare each other to look into dark water at midnight and tell what they see. A game equal parts fun and fear. Superstitions multiply. If your reflection blinks when you do not, you are doomed to heartbreak. If your face appears brighter than your friend's, a proposal is coming. Such stories travel faster than mirrors themselves, crossing rivers and mountains by word of mouth, shaping the hopes and worries of countless girls. The psychology of beauty grows ever more complicated. Some women, haunted by the impossible standards of poetry and portraiture, become obsessed with flaws only they can see. Others, buoyed by love or friendship, shrug off the glass's judgment and laugh at the game. Rivalries are fueled and soothed by mirrors. A friend assures you that you are the fairest, but does she mean it? Is she secretly pleased when you fret over a blemish? The mirror, in all its forms, becomes a stage for drama, envy, and reassurance. You find evidence in unexpected places. An abbess, writing in her diary, admits that she sometimes wishes for a better mirror, not for vanity, but to be sure she is clean before entering chapel. A spot of ash, a curl out of place, and the sisters will whisper. In another letter, a mother instructs her daughter to check her reflection before accepting a suitor. No man wants to see his wife's sorrow in her face before the wedding. In both, you sense the anxiety, the desperate wish to measure up, to be chosen, to be safe. Not all mirrors are literal. You notice the ways women measure themselves in each other's eyes, in the opinions of friends, mothers, suitors. A word of praise can last a week. A sneer or a rumor can linger for years. A plain woman, loved fiercely by her family, may move through life with assurance, while a beauty constantly measured and compared grows anxious and watchful. The mirror, you realize, is everywhere, not just in the bronze or glass, but in the marketplace, the church, the whispered comments of a passing stranger. The role of art cannot be ignored. Portraits, tapestries, and illuminated manuscripts offer women another, more idealized reflection. The images are always youthful, flawless, and serene, faces to which few can ever hope to compare. Some women find comfort in imagining themselves as the heroines of such scenes. Others feel the sting of inadequacy. The court artist, paid to flatter, creates illusions that ripple out into the world, setting standards that can never be met. There is a story, part legend, part warning, of a young woman who prayed every night for beauty and consulted her mirror each morning. One day, her reflection smiled when she did not. Terrified, she threw the glass into the river and was never seen again. Mothers tell their daughters the tale as a lesson. Do not let the mirror steal your soul. Yet, despite the danger, women cannot let go of the need to look, to know, to hope. The act of self-reflection becomes a private moment of control in a world where so much is decided by others. You watch as a grandmother hands her only mirror to her granddaughter on the eve of her wedding, blessing her with the words, "May you always see yourself with kind eye." As you drift towards sleep, the morning's reflections swirl in your mind. You understand, finally, that the greatest battle of all is not waged with powders or perfumes, but within, the battle fought daily in the mirror's shifting light. In the stories women tell themselves about their worth and their place in the world. Sometimes the mirror is a friend, other times a tormentor, but always it is there quietly shaping lives in ways seen and unseen. Night falls for the last time on this journey, heavy and velvet black as the town settles into silence. The fires burn low, the courtyards empty, and from behind thick stone walls or thin cottage doors, you sense the slow release of tension, the surrender that comes when no one is watching. In these quietest hours, women at last put aside the masks, potions, and anxious rituals that shape their waking lives. Here in the soft darkness, the truth of medieval beauty flickers, the rare, unguarded moments when women can simply be. Yet even now, the marks of battle remain. The smell of rosewater lingers on hands, the faint stinging of vinegar, the soreness of tightly braided hair, the ghost of envy or fear in the air. You realize beauty, so fiercely sought and so rarely found in peace, is more than the sum of skin, eyes, and hair. It's a language, a shield, a burden, and a hope woven into every hour, every choice, every breath. You listen to the last murmurs of the day. In a manor house, a noblewoman sits by her window, gazing out at a garden gone silver with moonlight. Her hair is unbound, falling in soft waves, her face scrubbed bare, her gown loose for sleep. The trappings of her station, jewels, painted pots, heavy gowns are set aside, and for a moment she is not a lady, not a prize or a pawn, but simply herself. She runs her fingers along the lines at her eyes, sighs and lets her body sink into the cushions. The peace is fragile, but it is real. Elsewhere, a peasant woman, her body weary from field and hearth, slips into bed beside her children. Her hands are rough, her face wind-burned, but tonight she cares little. She hums an old song and remembers her mother's voice and her grandmother's before that. Beauty, she knows, is not what the lords and ladies claim. It is laughter at the end of a long day, the warmth of another body, the satisfaction of survival. The rituals of release are as sacred as the rituals of preparation. In the convent, nuns pray by candlelight, their veils laid aside, their faces open to the hush of the chapel. Some murmur thanks for health, others for protection from gossip or envy, and a few simply ask for the strength to bear another day. In the privacy of the bath, a girl sinks under warm water, letting the masks slip away. Alone, an old woman combs her white hair and thinks of all the faces she has worn. Child, bride, mother, crone, each with its own lessons and losses. Yet even now, the pressures of beauty don't vanish entirely. Dreams are haunted by fears of losing favor, of being left behind, of not being enough. A daughter whispers her secret hopes to the darkness, to be loved, to be noticed, to be safe. A widow wonders if her memories are true. Was she ever as lovely as the boys once said? Does it matter any more? You sense, in these moments, the other side of beauty's battlefield. Beyond the envy and exhaustion, there is relief, even joy in letting go of the struggle. There is wisdom in old faces, laughter in weathered hands, a peace that comes from surviving what the world demands. The night asks nothing but patience, kindness, and forgiveness, first for others, then for yourself. Historians still debate what beauty really meant to medieval women, whether it was truly a prison or at times a source of pride and solidarity. The stories left behind are complicated, contradictory, and deeply human. There are tales of heartbreak and exclusion, but also moments of friendship, rebellion, and quiet triumph. Sometimes beauty is the enemy, sometimes it is the thread that holds a community together, offering comfort when little else does. You imagine, as you drift deeper, that the women of the past would understand your own worries, your own longing for acceptance and peace. They too measured themselves against impossible standards. They too hoped for a world that would see them, truly see them, without cruelty or conditions. And they too found moments of freedom, however brief, in the soft darkness before dawn. As you reach the end of tonight's journey, you picture a last scene, a circle of women, young and old, gathered in the dim light, sharing stories, secrets, and songs. No one competes, no one compares, and for this hour, the burden lifts. The scars of the day are forgiven. Tomorrow, the battle begins anew. But for now, there is nothing to prove, nothing to win, only the gentle, fierce miracle of being here.